The Galactic Council station floated in the darkness of space like a metal flower with 12 petals. Each petal belonged to one of the great species that ruled the known galaxy. For 3,000 years, these 12 species had decided the fate of every world, every civilization, every life form that reached for the stars. Humanity had joined this council only 15 years ago. They were considered young, weak, and unimportant. Their single petal on the great station was small and placed far from the center. The other species looked at humans the way a grown adult might look at a crawling baby, with little interest and even less respect. Taiho worked as a junior diplomat in the human section. He was a quiet man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. His job was simple: handle paperwork, attend boring meetings, and stay out of trouble. He had brought his 7-year-old daughter, Yuna, to the station because his wife had died 2 years ago. He had no one else to care for her. Yuna was a bright child with curious eyes and a habit of asking too many questions. She loved to explore, to touch things, to understand how everything worked. The station was the most exciting place she had ever seen. Every corridor held wonders. Every window showed stars she had never imagined. On the day that changed everything, Taiho was buried in documents. A trade agreement needed corrections. He worked at his desk while Yuna played with her small toys nearby. She grew bored, as children do. She looked at her father, saw he was busy, decided to explore just a little. She wandered down a corridor she had not seen before. The walls changed from plain metal to something beautiful, covered in strange symbols that glowed with soft blue light. Yuna thought it was pretty. She followed the symbols like a trail. She did not see the warning signs. She could not read the alien language. She was only 7 years old, and the door ahead was open. The room beyond looked magical. She stepped inside. The chamber was round and filled with strange objects on tall pillars. Incense burned in silver bowls. Yuna did not know that this was the Morvian sacred chamber, a place where only the highest members of that species were allowed to enter. She did not know that by walking inside. She had broken a law older than human civilization. She only knew that the glowing crystal in the center was beautiful, and she wanted to look at it more closely. "What is this creature doing here?" The voice was cold and sharp. Yuna turned and saw tall figures in dark robes standing in the doorway. Their skin was pale gray, their eyes were black, and they looked at her like she was an insect. Counselor Vethra was the oldest and most powerful of the Morvians. He had ruled his people for 200 years. He had voted against allowing humans into the council. He had called them clever animals in private meetings. Now one of these animals stood in his sacred space, contaminating it with her presence. "I'm sorry," Yuna said in a small voice. "I got lost." "I didn't mean to silence," Vethra commanded. He turned to his guards. "This human has violated our most sacred laws. The punishment is clear. Teach this creature what happens when vermin enter places they do not belong." Yuna did not understand what was happening until the first guard grabbed her arm. Then she screamed. They beat her. They beat a 7-year-old child who had simply walked through an open door. They broke her arm. They kicked her until she stopped moving. And when they were done, they dragged her unconscious body into a side corridor and left her there like garbage. Taiho found her 20 minutes later. He had realized she was missing and searched everywhere. When he saw his daughter lying in a pool of her own blood, he screamed. He screamed until his voice broke. Medical teams came. Some of the alien doctors looked at Yuna and refused to help. "We do not treat vermin," one said calmly. But a human doctor named Yunji pushed through the crowd, dropped to her knees, and began working to save the child's life. It took 3 hours of surgery. Yuna survived, but barely. She would need months to heal. Her arm would never be quite the same. When Ambassador Suman heard what happened, she demanded an emergency council meeting. She stood before the 12 great species and told them what the Morvians had done. She showed them images of Yuna's broken body. She demanded justice. The council listened. Then they voted. 12 species. 12 votes. All 12 voted that no crime had been committed. The Morvians had simply enforced their sacred laws. If a human child was too stupid to read warning signs, that was humanity's problem. Counselor Vethra smiled as the vote was announced. He looked directly at Ambassador Sumin and spoke words that would be remembered for centuries. The creature survived. That is mercy enough for humans. Be grateful we did not kill it. Now, return to your small corner of our station and teach your kind to stay where they belong. Some of the other counselors laughed. Others simply looked away, bored by this minor incident. Ambassador Sumin stood very still. Her face showed nothing. No anger, no tears, nothing at all. This emptiness was somehow more frightening than rage. I understand, she said quietly. Her voice was calm, almost peaceful. You have made your decision. All 12 of you. I want to be certain there will be no justice for what was done to our child. There is nothing to give justice for, Vethra replied. The matter is closed. Sumin nodded slowly. Then I have only 4 words for this council. She looked at each of the 12 species in turn. Her eyes were dark and cold. You will regret this. Then she turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, every human in the room stood and followed. They moved in complete silence. Not one of them looked back. The council members watched them go. Some were confused. Some were annoyed. None of them were worried. Why would they be? Humanity was weak. Humanity was primitive. Humanity had a tiny fleet of outdated ships and a small population on one little planet called Earth. What could they possibly do? In a hospital room on the station, a 7-year-old girl lay in a bed, her arm in a cast, her face covered in bruises. Her father sat beside her, holding her unbroken hand. Tears ran down his face. I'm sorry, Daddy, Yuna whispered. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Tai-Ho kissed her forehead gently. You did nothing wrong, my little star. Nothing at all. This was not your fault. Why did they hurt me? Tai-Ho could not answer. He did not have words for such cruelty. Far away, on a blue planet called Earth, billions of humans watched the council's vote on their screens. They saw the Morvian counselor laugh. They heard him call their child vermin. They watched their ambassador walk out in silence. And something changed in humanity that day. Something quiet. Something deep. Something that the galaxy would soon learn to fear. The stars continued to shine. The station continued to spin. The council continued to believe they ruled everything. They were wrong. 3 days passed after the council's vote. In those 3 days, something strange happened. Earth went silent. No trade ships left human space. No diplomatic messages were sent. No humans answered when other species called. The communication channels that usually carried human voices now played only static. It was as if an entire civilization had simply stopped talking. At first, the council did not care. The Morvians joked about it in their private meetings. The humans are sulking, Counselor Vethra said with a cruel smile. Like children who did not get their way. They will come back when they are hungry enough. Other species were less certain. Counselor Myrtle of the Kelthian people felt something cold in her stomach when she thought about the silence. She had seen Ambassador Sumin's face before she walked out. There had been no anger there, no fear. Only a terrible calm, like the sky before a great storm. Myrtle quietly ordered her people to move away from Morvian space. She did not explain why. She simply felt that distance might be wise. On the 4th day, everything changed. Every screen in the galaxy lit up at the same moment. Every communication device, every display panel, every holographic projector suddenly showed the same image. This was supposed to be impossible. The Council's greatest scientists had said that no species could broadcast to the entire galaxy at once. The technology did not exist. Humanity had just proved them wrong. President Dongwu of Earth appeared on every screen. He was an older man with gray hair and a soldier's posture. He had fought in wars when he was young. He had seen death and caused it. But he had also built peace. He had hoped, truly hoped, that humanity could join the galactic community as friends. That hope was dead now. Citizens of the galaxy, he began. His voice was calm. 3 days ago, members of the Morvian species beat a 7-year-old human child nearly to death. Her crime was walking through an open door. She did not know it was forbidden. She could not read the warning signs. She was just a curious little girl. Paused. On billions of worlds, trillions of beings watched. We asked the Galactic Council for justice. All 12 species voted that no crime had been committed. They laughed at us. They called our child vermin. Another pause. Longer this time, we had hoped to join your community in peace. We had hoped to be friends, partners, allies. For 15 years, we have been patient. We have been humble. We have hidden our true capabilities because we did not want to frighten you. We believed in diplomacy. President Dongwu leaned forward slightly. His eyes seemed to look directly at everyone watching. You heard our child. You laughed. You told us to be grateful she was not killed. His voice did not rise. It did not need to. We are done being patient. We are done being humble. And we are done hiding. He listed 4 demands. The council must surrender, Counselor Bethra, and every guard who had touched Yuna. The council must broadcast a formal apology to every world in the galaxy. The council must pay reparations to Yuna's family. And the council must grant humanity equal standing, with full voting rights and a proper place in galactic governance. You have 1 galactic standard week to meet these demands, President Dongwu said. If you refuse, humanity will consider itself at war with every species that voted against justice for our child. That means all 12 of you. The council members watching began to laugh. War with humanity. Their tiny fleet could be destroyed in an afternoon. Their single planet could be burned to ash in a day. This was madness, but President Dongwu was not finished. I know what you were thinking. You believe we are weak. You believe our ships are old and our weapons are primitive. You believe you can crush us easily? He smiled. It was not a kind smile. You are wrong. For 15 years, we have shown you only what we wanted you to see. Our real fleet is not small. Our real weapons are not primitive. We hid them because we wanted peace, not war. We wanted to earn your trust, not your fear. But you chose to hurt our child. So now you will see what we really are. We are giving you 1 week, not because we need time to prepare. We are already prepared. We are giving you 1 week so you can evacuate your civilians from military installations. Move your families away from your warships and your weapon factories. Get your children to safety. He leaned back. We will not warn you again. Transmission ended. Screens across the galaxy returned to normal. But nothing was normal anymore. The council called an emergency meeting within the hour. Counselor Vethra demanded immediate military action. We must crush these insects before they become a real threat, he shouted. Send the combined fleet to their pathetic little planet and burn it. Other counselors were not so sure. The broadcast itself proved that humans had technology the council did not understand. If they could do that, what else could they do? But pride won over wisdom. The council voted to ignore humanity's demands. They sent no apology. They arrested no one. They laughed at the idea of giving humans equal standing. Let them come, Vethra declared. We will teach them their place. Only Counselor Meyertel voted differently. She abstained, refusing to support either side. When asked why, she simply said, I saw Ambassador Suman's eyes. She was not bluffing. Deep in space, far from any known trade route, Admiral Juwan stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UNSS Retribution. Around her ship, thousands of other vessels held formation. Carriers, battleships, destroyers, and craft that had no names in any alien language because no alien had ever seen them. This was Earth's true fleet. Built in secret over 50 years, hidden in the darkness between stars, waiting for a day that humanity had always known might come. Admiral Juwan was a woman of 60 years with white hair and steady hands. She had never lost a battle. She had never started a war. But she had always been ready to finish one. A young officer approached her. Admiral, the Council has rejected our demands. They are mobilizing their combined fleet. Guan nodded slowly. She looked at a small photograph taped to her command console. It showed a little girl with a broken arm and a bruised face, smiling bravely at the camera, despite her pain. They had their chance, she said softly. They chose cruelty. They chose pride. They chose to laugh at a child suffering. She turned to her crew. All ships, prepare for jump. We move at dawn. The countdown timer on every human vessel began its final hours. Across the fleet, men and women checked their weapons, said their prayers, and thought about the little girl who had done nothing wrong except walk through an open door. They were not fighting for territory. They were not fighting for resources. They were not fighting for power. They were fighting because someone had hurt one of their own, and they would not stop until the galaxy understood what that meant. The war began not with one battle, but with 100 battles happening at the same moment. Across Morvian space, in systems the Council believed were safe, human ships appeared without warning. They came out of nowhere, their jump technology far beyond anything the galaxy had seen. One moment, space was empty. The next moment, death had arrived. The Morvian home fleet was the largest in the galaxy. 3,000 warships protected their ancient homeworld. They had never been defeated. They had never even been seriously challenged. Their commanders laughed when they detected the human ships approaching. Only 200 vessels. Admiral Vaskar sneered. We outnumbered them, 15-1. This will be over in minutes. It was over in minutes. But not the way he expected. Human weapons tore through Morvian shields like they were made of paper. Human ships moved so fast that targeting computers could not track them. Human fighters swarmed around the Great Morvian battleships and took them apart piece by piece. Admiral Vaskar's flagship was destroyed in the first 90 seconds. He never even gave an order. He simply watched in horror as his fleet died around him. And then he died too. When the battle ended, not a single Morvian warship remained. The humans had lost 4 ships. Captain Hyunwoo led his carrier group against a Morvian shipyard in a nearby system. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, the shipyard was debris, but every escape pod had been allowed to flee. Hyunwoo broadcast a message to the survivors. You are free to leave. We are not here for your workers. Only your weapons. Go home to your families. Tell them what you saw. Pattern repeated across the galaxy. Human forces destroyed military targets with terrible precision, but showed strange mercy to civilians. They broadcast safe corridors for evacuation. They rescued enemy escape pods. When they captured prisoners, they fed them, healed their wounds, and treated them with respect. The galaxy did not understand. This was not how wars were fought. Victorious fleets were supposed to burn worlds and enslave populations. That was simply how things worked. But humans did not follow those rules. They had their own rules, and those rules confused everyone. Lieutenant Murray flew a fighter with the Calcine Ghost. She was 26 years old and had been flying since she was 16. Her squadron was assigned to destroy a defense grid protecting a council shipyard. The grid was supposed to be unbreakable. Thousands of automated weapons platforms linked together in a network that could track and destroy anything that came close. 3 species had tried to crack similar grids and failed. Murray's squadron broke through in 18 minutes. Afterward, a reporter asked her if she felt anything about the enemy dead. Murray thought about the question for a moment. They had a week to leave, she said finally. We warned them. We gave them time. We told them exactly what was coming. They chose to stay and fight. She shrugged. We kept our word. Did they? On the ground, General Seojin led human troops against Council military installations on 3 planets simultaneously. His soldiers moved like shadows, appearing where they were not expected, striking with overwhelming force, then vanishing before the enemy could respond. Each installation fell within hours. Resistance crumbled not because humans were brutal, but because they were precise. They knew exactly where to hit, exactly when to strike, exactly how to break their enemies without destroying everything around them. A Zuta, Morvian officer, was brought before a human soldier named Junho. The Morvian was confused, angry, and afraid. He demanded to know why humans were fighting so hard over one child. John looked at him with genuine confusion. She's ours, he said simply. But she is just one child, one small life. Look at what you are destroying. Thousands are dying because of her. Junho shook his head slowly. You still don't understand. It's not about numbers. It's not about what makes sense. Yuna is one of us. Someone hurt her. Everything else. ... He gestured at the ruined installation around them. Everything else just follows from that. The Morvians stared at him. You are insane. Your entire species is insane. Maybe, Junho agreed, but we take care of our own. Can your people say the same? The Morvian had no answer. 2 weeks into the war, the council called an emergency session. For the first time in 3,000 years, there were empty seats. Several species had already begun distancing themselves from the Morvians. They saw which way the wind was blowing. The remaining councilors argued and blamed each other. Some demanded that the combined fleet make a final stand. Others wanted to negotiate. Councillor Vethra screamed at anyone who suggested surrender. We cannot bow to these animals. He shouted, We are the masters of this galaxy. We have ruled for 3,000 years. We will not be defeated by creatures we allowed to live. But even as he spoke, reports came in of another human victory, and another, and another. The great Morvian Empire, which had taken 2,000 years to build, was falling apart in weeks. Ambassador Sumin was invited to attend the council session. Perhaps humanity could be reasoned with. Perhaps a deal could be made. Her response was brief. We're busy. On Earth in a hospital room, Yuna was slowly healing. Her arm was still in a cast, but she was sitting up now, watching cartoons on a screen. Her father Taiho sat beside her, reading reports from the front lines. Daddy, Yuna said, why are people fighting? Taiho put down his tablet. Because some D people hurt you, and we couldn't let that go. But people are dying, yes, little star. People are dying. Yuna was quiet for a moment. I didn't want anyone to die because of me. Taiho took her hand gently. This isn't because of you. This is because of what they did. They made a choice to hurt you. They made a choice to laugh about it. They made a choice to say you didn't matter. He squeezed her fingers. We are making a different choice. We are saying that you do matter. That every human matters. That no one gets to hurt us and walk away. Will it stop soon? Taiho looked at the reports. The Morvian homeworld would fall within days. Their allies were surrendering one by one. Soon, there would be no one left to fight. Yes, he said. Soon, in space, Admiral Giwan watched her fleet prepare for the final assault on the Morvian homeworld. She had fought more battles in the past 2 weeks than most admirals fought in their entire careers. She had won all of them, but she felt no joy. War was not something to celebrate. It was something to finish. Admiral, an officer reported, the Morvian government is requesting terms of surrender. Juan nodded. Tell them we have only one term. Complete and unconditional surrender. They will hand over everyone responsible for what happened to Yuna. They will face justice, not revenge. But they will face it, and if they refuse... Giwan looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a little girl was healing from wounds she should never have suffered. Then we continue, until there's no one left to refuse. The message was sent. The galaxy waited to see what the Morvians would choose, but everyone already knew. The masters of the galaxy had become students of a single, painful lesson. Never hurt a human child. The cost of that lesson was still being counted. The war had lasted 3 weeks. In that time, the galaxy had changed forever. 6 of the 12 council species had surrendered completely. They had given up their weapons, opened their borders, and begged for peace. 2 more were negotiating terms. Their ambassadors, speaking in humble voices that would have been unthinkable a month ago. The Morvians and their 3 closest allies continued to fight. But everyone knew it was over. Their fleets were destroyed. Their colonies were occupied. Their homeworld was surrounded by human ships that waited with terrible patience. Envoy Bora was sent to accept the surrenders. She was a woman of 45 years, with gentle eyes and a soft voice. She had spent her life studying diplomacy, languages, and the art of making peace. Now she used those skills to end a war. Species after species came before her. Their leaders bowed their heads and signed documents of surrender. They expected cruelty. They expected demands for slaves, resources, and humiliation. That was how victors behaved. Bora gave them none of that. Your civilians will receive food aid immediately, she told each defeated species. Your wounded will be treated in our hospitals. Your prisoners will be returned within 1 month. We ask only that you join us in building a better galaxy. The defeated ambassadors stared at her in confusion. One of them, an elderly leader of the Voth people, finally asked the question everyone was thinking. Why? You could burn our worlds. You could take everything we have. We treated your kind as lesser beings for 15 years. Why would you show us mercy? Bora was quiet for a moment. Because mercy is not weakness, she said finally. Because revenge is not justice. Because we want to build something, not just destroy. She looked at the old leader with steady eyes. We are not fighting to rule you. We are fighting to change what happened. We are fighting so that no child of any species will ever be beaten and called vermin again. The Voth leader lowered his head. We did not deserve such enemies, Nobora agreed. You didn't. But here we are. The question now is what we do next. While Bora accepted surrenders, others hunted for the one person who could not be forgiven. Commander Yajin led human intelligence operations. She was brilliant, patient, and utterly dedicated to her mission. For 3 weeks, her teams had tracked Counselor Vethra as he fled from hiding place to hiding place. Always one step ahead. Now, finally, they had found him. Deep beneath the Morvian homeworld, in a bunker designed to survive anything, the counselor who had ordered a child beaten sat surrounded by his personal guards and waited for rescue that would never come. Admiral Giwan was given the coordinates and asked how many ships she wanted for the assault. None, she said. Send 1 team. 5 soldiers. I want him to know exactly how little he matters. The team was led by a man who had volunteered for this mission the moment it was announced. Taiho, father of Yuna, diplomat turned warrior. He had trained for weeks while his daughter healed. He had learned to fight so that he could be the one to bring justice. The 5 soldiers dropped through the atmosphere in a small craft, landed near the bunker entrance, and began their assault. The Morvian guards were elite troops trained for their entire lives. They outnumbered the humans 20-1. The fight lasted 9 minutes. When it was over, Taiho walked through the bunker's final door. Counselor Vethra sat behind a desk, his face pale with terror. Around him, screens showed the fall of his empire. Everything he had built, everything he had ruled, was crumbling to dust. Hello, Counselor, Taiho said. His voice was calm. My daughter would like a word with you. But first we need to talk. Vethra tried to speak, but his voice cracked. The alien who had looked at humans as vermin now trembled before one. Do you remember what you said? Taiho continued. You said she was a creature. You said letting her live was mercy enough. You laughed. I was following our sacred laws. Your sacred laws allowed you to beat a 7-year-old child until her bones broke. Taiho stepped closer. Your sacred laws let you leave her bleeding in a corridor like garbage. Your sacred laws made you think you could do that without consequences. He stopped directly in front of the desk. You were wrong far away. On the council station, Counselor Myertel waited to meet with Envoy Bora. She had not fought against humanity. She had abstained from the original vote, but she had done nothing to stop what happened either. When Bora arrived, Myertel spoke immediately. I knew what they would do to that child. I saw Vethra's face when he heard she had entered his chamber. I knew, and I said nothing because I was afraid of what the Morvians would do to my people if I interfered. She bowed her head. I offer myself as a war criminal. My silence was a crime. I accept whatever punishment you choose. Bora studied her for a long moment. This was the first leader who had come forward with genuine guilt instead of excuses. Your silence was a crime, Bora agreed. You watched while a child was hurt. You said nothing. You did nothing. Myral nodded, waiting for her sentence. Your punishment, Bora continued, is to spend the rest of your life making that right. The Kelthian looked up in confusion. You will not die today, Counselor. That would be too easy. Instead, you will work for peace. You will protect the weak and the vulnerable. You will speak up when others are afraid to. And every morning when you wake, you will remember why. Myrtella's eyes filled with tears. She had expected death. She had prepared for death. Mercy was harder. You would trust me with such a task? I would give you a chance to earn that trust, Bora replied. What you do with it is your choice. On the Morvian homeworld, Counselor Vethra was brought before cameras that broadcast to the entire galaxy. He walked in chains, his fine robes torn, his proud face broken. Beside him walked Taiho, who had captured him. Behind them walked the other 4 soldiers of the team. As they emerged into the light, millions of Morvians watched their great leader reduced to a prisoner. They had been told all their lives that other species were beneath them. Now they saw the truth. They were not masters. They were not superior. They were simply people who had made terrible choices and were now facing the results. Vethra was loaded onto a human ship for transport to trial. As the doors closed, he looked back at his ruined world one last time. Why didn't you just kill me? He whispered. It would have been easier. Taiho shook his head. Death is easy. Living with what you've done is hard. You will stand trial. You will hear every crime read aloud. You will see the faces of everyone you hurt, and then you will spend the rest of your life remembering. The ship lifted off. The war was ending. But the reckoning was just beginning. Across the galaxy, species that had ruled for thousands of years were learning a new lesson. Power was not enough. Cruelty was not strength. And some things, once done, could never be undone. On Earth, in her hospital room, Yuna watched the broadcast of Vethra's capture. Her arm was healing. Her bruises were fading. But she would carry scars inside and out. For the rest of her life, her father's face appeared on screen, walking beside the chained counselor. He looked tired but determined. He looked like a hero. That's Daddy, Yuna said softly to Dr. Yunji, who sat beside her. Yes, it is, Yunji replied, wiping her eyes. He went to bring the bad man to justice. When is he coming home? Soon, little star. Very soon, Yuna nodded and turned back to the screen. She did not understand everything that had happened. She did not understand why so many people had fought and died. She only knew that someone had hurt her, her family had protected. Her, that was what families did. That was what humans did. The galaxy was finally beginning to understand. 1 month after the war ended, Counselor Vethra stood trial. The court was not human. Humanity had insisted on this. They wanted the galaxy to see, to judge, to understand. Representatives from every species sat in the great chamber. Watching as crimes were read aloud one by one, the beating of Yuna was only the beginning. As investigators dug deeper, they found horrors that stretched back centuries. Mass graves on conquered worlds. Slave camps, hidden in deep space. Species that had been quietly exterminated because the Morvians found them inconvenient for 3,000 years. The galaxy had been ruled by monsters wearing the masks of civilization. Now those masks were torn away. Vethra listened to every charge. He saw images of his victims projected on giant screens. He heard testimonies from survivors who had waited decades for someone to listen. When asked if he had anything to say, he simply shook his head. There were no words left. The verdict was unanimous, guilty of crimes against all sentient life. The sentence was life imprisonment on a barren moon at the edge of known space. He would live alone, in a small cell, with nothing but recordings of his victims' testimonies playing forever. He would hear their voices until the day he died. Death would have been kinder, observers noted afterward. Ambassador Suman nodded when she heard this. Yes, she said simply. It would have been 2 months after the trial. Yuna walked without assistance for the first time since the attack. The hospital corridor was lined with people, doctors, nurses, soldiers, diplomats, and ordinary citizens who had come just to see this moment. Dr. Yunji stood at the end of the corridor, her eyes filled with tears. Her hands pressed together in silent prayer, Yuna took one step, then another. Her father Taiho walked beside her but did not touch her. She wanted to do this herself. She needed to do this herself. It hurt. Every step sent pain through her healing body, but she kept walking. When she reached the end of the corridor, the crowd erupted in cheers. Yuna looked around in confusion. She did not understand why everyone was so happy. "Did I do something good?" she asked her father. Taiho knelt down and hugged her gently. "You did something amazing, little star. You showed everyone that you're stronger than anything that happened to you." A reporter pushed through the crowd and held out a microphone. "Yuna, what do you think about the war that was fought in your name?" The little girl looked at the reporter with confusion in her eyes. "They hurt me," she said. "So my family helped me. Isn't that normal?" The reporter did not know how to respond. But across the galaxy, billions of beings watching the broadcast understood something important. To humans, it was normal. Hurt one, fight all. Protect the weak. Never abandon your own. This was not something they learned in schools or read in books. It was something they simply were. 6 months after the war, the new Galactic Assembly met for the first time. The old council was gone, dissolved by unanimous agreement. In its place, a new body had formed, one where every species had equal voice, where the strong could not prey upon the weak, where children of any kind could walk through any door without fear. Humanity held 5 seats in this new assembly. They had not demanded these seats through conquest. They had been elected by the other species, who wanted human voices in their government. Ambassador Sumin addressed the assembly on its opening day. She spoke of peace, cooperation, and building something better together. She did not mention the war. She did not need to. Behind her in the visitors' gallery, a small girl sat, drawing pictures with crayons brought from Earth. She drew stick figures of many shapes, humans, Morvians, Kelthians, and others. Standing together under a yellow sun, an aide asked what she was drawing. "Friends," Yuna said, "everyone being friends." The aide looked at the picture for a long moment. Such a simple dream from such a small child. And yet, an entire galaxy had gone to war to make it possible. Years passed. The war became history, then legend, then required study in schools across the galaxy. Historians of a dozen species wrote thousands of books trying to understand what had happened. They analyzed tactics and technology. They studied logistics and strategy. They created simulations and models trying to explain how humanity had defeated the combined might of the Council in less than a month. They missed the point. A young Kelthian student named Vara sat in a university classroom, listening to her professor explain the war for an exam. The professor was human, a woman with white hair and steady hands, who had once commanded the largest fleet in human history, Professor Jiwan. Retired admiral, now educator. "I don't understand," Vara said when the lecture ended. "Why did humanity react so strongly to the harm of one child? The resources spent, the lives lost. It doesn't make logical sense." Professor Jiwan smiled. "You're asking the wrong question." "What do you mean?" "You're asking why we would go to war over one child. But to us, there was never a question at all." Yuna was one of us. She was hurt. Everything else just followed from that. "But the cost," Vara protested. "The destruction, the death. Let me ask you something." Jiwan leaned forward. "If someone hurt your child, your sibling, your loved one, and everyone with power refused to help, what would you do?" Vara was silent. "Humans don't calculate the value of our own," Jiwan continued. "We don't weigh one life against convenience or politics or peace. Maybe that makes us irrational. Maybe it makes us dangerous." She paused, looking out the window at the campus below. Students of every species walked together in the sunlight. Humans beside Morvians, Kelthians beside Voth. All of them sharing the same paths under the same sky. But it also means that anyone under our protection, anyone we call ours, is truly safe. Because we will never stop. We will never forget. And we will never abandon them. Vara thought about this. She thought about the war, about the child at the center of it all, about the galaxy that had changed because one little girl walked through the wrong door. The galaxy used to fear that about you, she said slowly. That ferocity, that stubbornness. And now, Vara looked at the window. At the students walking together, at a universe that had learned, through fire and blood, what humanity truly was. Now we're starting to understand it, she said. That protection you gave Yuna, you extend it to everyone now. Every species in the assembly. Every child on every world. Chuan nodded. Welcome to the family. The students sat with that thought for a moment. Then she smiled. We didn't know, she whispered. We looked at humans and saw a weak species pretending to be strong. We didn't understand what we were really seeing. What do you see now? Vara thought about her answer carefully. She thought about the war and the mercy that followed. She thought about the surrenders accepted without humiliation. She thought about Counselor Myrtle, who now spent her days protecting the vulnerable across the galaxy because a human had given her a chance to make things right. I see people who will burn empires to protect one child, she said finally, and then build something better from the ashes. People who could rule through fear, but choose to lead through example. People who show mercy not because they're weak, but because they're strong enough to choose kindness. Professor Juan's eyes softened. And what does that tell you about the galaxy's future? Vara looked out the window one more time. Somewhere out there, a woman named Yuna lived a quiet life, not as a symbol or a cause, but as a person who had survived something terrible and found peace on the other side. She had grown up, healed her wounds, and built a family of her own. Her children would never know what it meant to be called vermin. No child would ever know that again, tells me, Vara said slowly, that we're going to be okay. Because humans won't let it be any other way. The professor smiled. Outside, the sun continued to shine. Children of 100 species played together in the gardens. The galaxy turned, and life went on. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the stars held secrets that humanity had not yet discovered, but they would discover them. Together with their new family, together with the galaxy that had hurt them and been forgiven, because that was what humans did. They protected their own. They showed mercy to their enemies. And they never, ever gave up. The end.